The day I lost everything and found my true self. My name is Catherine Martinez, and I'm 32 years old. 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I was the regional sales manager at Morrison & Associates, one of Chicago's most respected consulting firms. I lived in a beautiful townhouse with my husband Richard, had a close relationship with my father Joseph, and seemed to have everything figured out. Then came Tuesday, November 14th. The day that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. But before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit that like button if you've ever felt like your whole world was crashing down. Because what happened after that terrible day will shock you. The perfect facade. I had always been the golden child. Growing up in Milwaukee, my father Joseph worked 2 jobs to put me through college. He was a mechanic by day and drove for a rideshare company by night, also I could have opportunities he never had. Catherine, he would say, wiping grease from his hands after another 16-hour day, education is the only thing they can't take away from you. Make me proud. And I did. I graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern, landed my dream job at Morrison & Associates, and worked my way up from junior consultant to regional manager in just 5 years. I was making more money than my father had ever seen, and I thought I was living his dream. 2 years ago, at a charity gala downtown, I met Richard Thompson. He was charming, successful, and worked as a financial advisor for wealthy clients. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. We were engaged within 8 months and married the following spring in a ceremony that cost more than my father made in 2 years. My father walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," he whispered. "You've made it." Richard and I bought a gorgeous townhouse in Lincoln Park. He drove a BMW, I had my Mercedes, and from the outside, we looked like the picture-perfect power couple. We hosted dinner parties where guests would comment on our beautiful home and seemingly flawless marriage. But behind closed doors, cracks were already forming. As my career continued to flourish, Richard grew increasingly distant. What started as supportive comments about my dedication turned into passive-aggressive remarks. "Another late night, I see," he'd say when I'd come home at 9 p.m. "Maybe you should just move your bed to the office." When I received my promotion to regional manager, Richard's congratulations felt hollow. He quickly changed the subject to talk about his own clients, as if my success somehow diminished his. The more successful I became, the more resentment I felt from him. But I pushed those feelings aside, focusing on climbing the corporate ladder and making my father proud. The trap was set. What I didn't know was that for months, my world had been quietly unraveling. It started when Morrison & Associates brought in new leadership last year. The collaborative environment I had thrived in slowly transformed into something more cutthroat. Harry Williamson, the new VP of sales who became my direct supervisor, seemed to question every decision I made. Projects I had successfully managed were suddenly reassigned. My input in meetings was frequently interrupted or dismissed. Client relationships I had built over years were slowly being transferred to other team members. But the strangest thing was how my presentations would mysteriously have errors when I opened them in client meetings. Emails I was certain I had sent would disappear from my outbox. Positive client feedback would somehow be reported to upper management as concerning or mixed. My assistant Sharon tried to warn me during a coffee break 6 weeks before everything fell apart. "Catherine, something isn't right," she whispered, looking around nervously. "Harry's been having private meetings with clients behind your back. And yesterday, I saw him going through your computer when you were at lunch." I should have listened to her. But I was so focused on proving myself that I dismissed her concerns as workplace paranoia. Meanwhile, at home, Richard had become increasingly critical. He complained about my long hours, my dedication to my career, and what he called my obsession with success. "You're becoming someone I don't recognize," he said one evening as I worked on a presentation. When was the last time we actually talked about something other than your job? I thought he was just feeling neglected. I promised to work on our work-life balance. I had no idea he was already working on something else entirely. The day everything collapsed. Tuesday morning started like any other. I arrived at Morrison & Associates at 7:30 a.m., prepared for our weekly department meeting. I had spent the weekend perfecting a presentation on our Q4 strategy, confident it would impress the leadership team. But when I walked into the conference room, I immediately knew something was wrong. Harry was there, along with several people from HR I had never seen before, including Wanda Patterson, the head of human resources who rarely attended our meetings. "Catherine," Harry said without looking at me directly, "please have a seat. We need to discuss some changes." My stomach dropped. Around the table, my team members avoided eye contact, their faces a mixture of shock and pity. Effective immediately, Harry continued, his voice unnaturally formal, "Your position is being eliminated due to departmental restructuring. We thank you for your contributions and wish you well in your future endeavors." The room fell dead silent. I sat there, unable to process what I was hearing. "This has to be a mistake," I finally managed to say. "My numbers are the best in the region. I just closed the Henderson account last month." Wanda slid a folder across the table. "This contains information about your severance package and benefits continuation. We'll need you to clear out your personal items today." "On what grounds?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "As stated, this is due to restructuring, not performance," Wanda replied mechanically. "Security will assist you in gathering your belongings." The humiliation burned through me as I packed up my office under the watchful eye of a security guard. My family photos, my awards, the plant I had kept alive for 3 years, everything went into a cardboard box. When I tried to access my computer to save personal files, I discovered my login had already been deactivated. They had planned this well in advance. As I was escorted out, Sharon slipped me a piece of paper. "Call me tonight," she whispered. "There's something you need to know." The security guard walked me through the office, past colleagues who suddenly found their computer screens fascinating, down the elevator, and all the way to my car in the parking garage. I sat in my Mercedes for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, too shocked to cry. The betrayal at home. The drive home was a blur. I kept rehearsing how I would tell Richard, hoping he would finally step up and support me through this crisis. Maybe this shared adversity would bring us closer together. When I pulled into our driveway at 11 a.m., I was surprised to see Richard's BMW already there. He usually worked until at least 6 p.m. I entered through the front door, calling out, "Richard. I'm home early. Something happened at work." The house was quiet except for muffled sounds coming from upstairs. As I climbed the stairs, I noticed Richard's jacket and briefcase thrown carelessly on the banister, unusual for his typically neat habits. Our bedroom door was partially open. I pushed it wider and froze. Richard was hastily putting on his shirt, his hair disheveled. The shower was running in our ensuite bathroom. "Catherine." His voice cracked with panic. "What are you doing home?" Before I could answer, a woman's voice called from the bathroom, "Richard, did you find my earring?" My blood turned to ice. "Who is that?" Richard's face went from shock to anger in seconds. "Why aren't you at work? And why are you home so early?" "I just got fired," I said flatly. "Now answer my question. Who is in our bathroom?" The bathroom door opened, and a young woman appeared, wrapped in my bathrobe. She looked to be in her mid-20s with long auburn hair. She froze when she saw me. "You must be the wife," she said with shocking boldness. "And you must be the reason my husband comes home late every Tuesday," I replied, surprising myself with my calm tone. Richard stepped between us. Catherine, this isn't what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you're having an affair in our bed, in our home, on a Tuesday morning when you should be managing your clients' portfolios. The woman, I later learned her name was Jessica, grabbed her clothes and retreated to the bathroom. Richard's expression hardened. Maybe if you had been a real wife instead of a workaholic robot, this wouldn't have happened. When was the last time you were actually present in this marriage? How long has this been going on? I demanded. 4 months, he admitted with shocking casualness. Jessica understands me. She doesn't make me feel like a failure for not being as successful as my wife. 4 months. A third of a year of lies. All those client dinners and late meetings he had been with her. I want both of you out of my house, I said, my voice shaking. Richard laughed, actually laughed. Your house. I pay half the mortgage. And speaking of money, how exactly are you going to afford this place now that you're unemployed? The cruel smile on his face told me everything. He wasn't surprised by my job loss. He was pleased by it. How did you know I lost my job? I asked. I just found out 2 hours ago. Richard's momentary confusion gave way to another smirk. Lucky guess. But honestly, Catherine, I'm not surprised. You've been impossible to live with lately. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed our wedding photo from the dresser and hurled it against the wall. The glass shattered across the hardwood floor. Richard's face contorted with rage. You psychotic witch. You have nothing without me. Nothing. Then he did something I never thought possible. He spit in my face. The warm saliva hit my cheek as I stood paralyzed with shock and disgust. Jessica and I have been planning this for weeks anyway, he continued, pulling a suitcase from the closet. She's moving in with me next month. We're getting a condo downtown with the bonus I got last quarter. My phone rang, interrupting the nightmare. My father's name flashed on the screen. Perfect timing, Richard sneered. Daddy calling to check on his little princess. Maybe he can fix this mess for you too. I declined the call, but a text appeared immediately. Come home now. We need to talk. Richard zipped his suitcase and grabbed Jessica's hand. At the bedroom door, he turned back to me. I'll be back for the rest of my things tomorrow. And Catherine. Don't even think about changing the locks. You'll need my half of the mortgage payment. Then they were gone. I heard the front door slam, followed by the sound of Richard's BMW backing out of our driveway. I stood in my bedroom, my career and marriage destroyed in the span of 4 hours. And based on my father's message, I had a feeling the worst was yet to come. A father's betrayal. The 20-minute drive to my childhood home in Oak Park felt like an eternity. I tried to compose myself at red lights, practicing explanations that might satisfy my father. Nothing seemed adequate. The house looked the same as always, a modest 2-story colonial that my father had worked so hard to provide. He had refinanced it twice to pay for my college education, sacrificing his own comfort for my future. My father opened the door before I could knock. Behind him stood Wanda Patterson from HR. My blood turned to ice. Wanda smiled coldly. Hello again, Catherine. What is she doing here? I asked my father. Come in and sit down, he said quietly, his face grave. We moved to the living room, where Wanda had clearly made herself comfortable with coffee and papers spread across the coffee table. Catherine, my father began, Wanda called me this morning. She's an old friend from the neighborhood. Did you know that? I stared at both of them, pieces of a horrible puzzle clicking into place. She told me about your performance issues at work, my father continued. About your attitude problems and unrealistic expectations. That's not true, I said, my voice rising. I was their top performer. This was political, not performance-based. Wanda laughed. Catherine, denial isn't going to help you now. Your supervisor Harry documented numerous instances of insubordination, missed deadlines, and client complaints. Harry sabotaged me, I protested. He deleted my emails, changed my presentations. These are serious accusations, my father interrupted. Do you have proof? I thought about Sharon's warning, about all the strange incidents I had dismissed. I can get proof. From whom? Wanda asked. Your assistant Sharon. She's been terminated for disloyalty to management. Effective today. My heart sank. They had thought of everything. My father stood up, pacing to the window. Catherine, I've worked 3 jobs my entire life to give you opportunities one never had. I sacrificed everything for your education, your career, your success. Dad, I know, and I'm grateful. But you threw it all away, he continued, not letting me finish. Wanda tells me you've become arrogant, entitled. That you think the rules don't apply to you. That's not who I am, I said desperately. You know me better than that. He turned to face me, and his expression broke my heart. Do I? When was the last time you visited? When was the last time you called just to talk, not because you needed something? I opened my mouth to respond but realized I couldn't remember. And now, he continued, you've lost your job and probably your marriage too, based on what Wanda tells me about your priorities. How does she know about my marriage? I asked. Wanda smiled again. Richard called me this afternoon. He's very concerned about your mental state. He mentioned some disturbing behavior. The room was spinning. This is insane. You're all working together. Nobody's working together, honey, my father said sadly. This is just the consequences of your choices catching up with you. He sat down across from me. I'm disappointed, Catherine. After everything I sacrificed, everything I gave up for you, this is how it ends. Tears streamed down my face. Dad, please. You have to believe me. I'm being set up. By whom? And why? He shook his head. Successful people don't get set up, Catherine. They get results. Wanda gathered her papers. Joseph, I'll let you two talk. But remember what we discussed about enabling versus helping. After she left, my father and I sat in silence for several minutes. What do you want from me, Dad? I finally asked. I want you to take responsibility, he said. Admit your mistakes, learn from them, and start rebuilding. But you can't do that here. What do you mean? He took a deep breath. I think it's best if you find somewhere else to stay while you figure things out. I can't watch you make excuses and blame others for your failures. The words hit me like a physical blow. You're kicking me out. I'm giving you the space you need to grow up, he said. When you're ready to take responsibility for your life and make real changes, we can talk. I stood up, my legs shaking. I can't believe this. My own father. I love you, Catherine, he said, not meeting my eyes. But sometimes love means tough choices. I walked to the door, then turned back. When you realize what really happened here, I hope you can live with this decision. So do I, he replied quietly. Rock bottom. I drove aimlessly for hours, calling hotels on my phone, most of them booked or too expensive for someone who had just lost their income. Finally, I found a room at a budget motel on the outskirts of the city. The sun set and wasn't much to look at, but it was clean and cheap. The desk clerk, a kind elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, took pity on me when she saw my tear-stained face. Rough day, honey? She asked gently. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Room 23 is quiet and faces the back. Sometimes we all need a place to hide for a while. That night, I sat on the edge of the sagging mattress and finally allowed myself to break down completely. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen shut. When the tears finally stopped, I called Sharon. "Catherine. Oh my God, are you okay? I heard about this afternoon." "Sharon, they fired you too. This morning, right after you left. They said I was not aligned with new management priorities. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "No, it's not. Listen, I made copies of everything before they could delete it. Harry's been planning this for months. I have emails, documents, everything." "What do you mean?" "He's been systematically sabotaging you since he arrived. Redirecting your emails, altering your files, feeding false information to clients about you. I have proof of all of it." For the first time in 12 hours, I felt a spark of hope. Why would he do this? I don't know for sure, but I overheard him on a call once. He mentioned someone named Joseph Martinez. "Isn't that your father's name?" My blood ran cold. "What did he say?" "Something about keeping their agreement and teaching his daughter a lesson about respect." The betrayal cut even deeper than I thought possible. My own father had orchestrated my destruction. The truth emerges. Over the next few days, Sharon and I pieced together the conspiracy. Using the documents she had saved in some detective work, we uncovered the truth. My father, in his misguided attempt to humble me and bring me back to earth, had contacted Harry months earlier. He was concerned that success was going to my head, and that I needed to learn some hard lessons about life. Harry, who had his own reasons for wanting me gone, I later learned he had been embezzling client funds and needed a scapegoat, was happy to oblige. Together, they had systematically undermined my position, sabotaged my work, and poisoned relationships with my clients and colleagues. Richard had been brought into the plan later, when my father expressed concerns about my priorities and suggested that maybe some marital difficulties would help me focus on what really matters. The affair with Jessica wasn't part of the original plan, but when it started, Richard saw it as an opportunity to exit the marriage with his reputation intact and financial benefits secured. Wanda's involvement was purely professional. She was following Harry's directions and covering the company's legal exposure. But knowing the truth and proving it were two different things. Finding my strength. For 2 weeks, I lived in that motel room, surviving on savings and takeout food, trying to figure out my next move. Then one morning, Mrs. Chen knocked on my door. "Honey, there's a woman here to see you. Says her name is Margaret." Margaret Coleman turned out to be a labor attorney who had heard about my case through Sharon, who had reached out to several legal advocacy groups. "I've reviewed the documents your friend provided," Margaret said as we sat in the motel's small lobby. "You have a strong case for wrongful termination, conspiracy, and possibly fraud. Can we prove it?" "With Sharon's evidence and some additional investigation, yes. But more importantly, I think we can expose the whole network of people who conspired against you." "What do you mean?" Margaret smiled. "Catherine, your father and Harry made one crucial mistake. They documented their communications. And in today's digital world, nothing really gets deleted." Over the next month, Margaret's team uncovered email trails, phone records, and financial documents that painted a clear picture of the conspiracy. Harry had been embezzling funds from client accounts for over a year. When an audit was scheduled, he needed someone to blame. My father's call had been perfectly timed. The emails between Harry and my father showed months of planning, with my father providing personal information about my habits, insecurities, and relationships that Harry used to manipulate situations. Richard's involvement was documented through text messages and credit card records showing payments to Jessica and planning for their life together while still married to me. Justice served. The civil lawsuit moved quickly once we had the evidence. Morrison and Associates, faced with proof of Harry's embezzlement and the conspiracy to frame me, settled immediately. The settlement included full reinstatement of my position, which I declined, a substantial monetary payment, and a public statement clearing my name. Harry was arrested for embezzlement and conspiracy. He pled guilty and received 3 years in federal prison. Richard, faced with evidence of his role in the conspiracy and his fraudulent use of our joint assets, agreed to a divorce settlement that left me with the house and most of our assets. But the most satisfying justice came from an unexpected source. Several of my former clients, having learned the truth about what happened, left Morrison and Associates and followed me to the boutique consulting firm I started with Sharon as my business partner. Within 6 months, Martinez and Associates, yes, I kept my maiden name for business, had 12 employees and a client roster that included some of Chicago's most prestigious companies. The reckoning. My father showed up at my new office on a Thursday afternoon, 8 months after he had thrown me out of his house. He looked older, smaller somehow. His shoulders were hunched, and his eyes couldn't meet mine. "Catherine." My secretary buzzed me. "Your father is here. Should I send him in?" I could have refused to see him. Part of me wanted to. But I needed to hear what he had to say. "Dad," I said when he entered my corner office overlooking Lake Michigan. "Catherine." He stopped just inside the door, taking in the success I had built from the ashes of his betrayal. I need to talk to you." "About what?" He sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. "I've been to see Harry in prison." I said nothing, waiting. He told me everything. About the money he stole. About how he used what I told him to hurt you. About how none of it was about teaching you lessons or helping you grow. And I was a fool, he said, his voice breaking. I was so worried about losing my little girl to success that I destroyed the woman she had become. Tears were streaming down his face now. "I thought I was protecting you from becoming someone I didn't recognize. But I became someone I don't recognize instead." I felt my own eyes fill with tears, but I held them back. "I lost my job last month," he continued. "When the story about Harry came out, when people learned about my role in it, they couldn't keep me on. And you know what? I deserved it." He looked up at me finally. "I'm not here asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm here to tell you that I'm proud of you. Not for your success, not for your money or your office or your company. I'm proud of you for surviving what I did to you and becoming stronger because of it." He stood up to leave. "I know I lost the right to call myself your father. But I want you to know that the woman sitting in this office is everything I should have celebrated instead of fearing." "Dad," I called as he reached the door. He turned back. "I forgive you," I said quietly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." He nodded, unable to speak, and walked out of my office. Full circle. Today, 2 years after the worst day of my life, I'm sitting in my penthouse apartment overlooking downtown Chicago, preparing for tomorrow's board meeting where we'll announce Martinez and Associates' expansion to 3 new cities. Sharon just left after our weekly planning dinner. She's now COO of the company and my closest friend and business partner. Richard remarried Jessica 6 months ago. According to mutual friends, he's working as a junior financial advisor at a small firm and struggling with debt from his legal fees. My father and I have dinner once a month now. It's still awkward sometimes, but we're slowly rebuilding trust. He started seeing a therapist to understand why he felt so threatened by my success, and he's working to make amends to other people he hurt over the years. Harry gets out of prison next year. He'll find a very different business landscape when he does. But the most important change is in me. I learned that losing everything I thought defined me was actually the gift I never knew I needed. Being stripped of my job, my marriage, and my family's approval forced me to discover who I really was underneath all those external validations. I'm stronger now. More confident. More authentic. And I'm never again going to let anyone else define my worth. That terrible Tuesday was the beginning of the best chapter of my life. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself.